Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today. We are tackling a massive topic, honestly, one that causes way more stress and confusion for beginners than almost anything else in tech. Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise and finally demystify computer science fundamentals. If you're gearing up for your first job search, or if you're just trying to figure out what you actually literally need to learn to be a successful software engineer, you are in the exact right place. We're going to take all this complex stuff and break it down into a highly focused, highly actionable roadmap.
Okay, let's dive right into this. If you've spent, any time at all on developer forums or social media, you've probably witnessed this endless, super confusing online war. On one side, you've got Camp A loudly claiming that you absolutely must study pure theory, algorithms, and data structures from dusty textbooks, or else you're just not a real programmer. But then, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you have Camp B shouting that theory is dead, nobody cares about algorithms, and you should just learn a framework and ship code. This tug of war, it creates incredible imposter syndrome. You end up completely paralyzed, wondering if you're just wasting your time. I completely understand why it feels so overwhelming.
But honestly, here's the truth. Both of these camps are kind of wrong. Or rather, they're both dealing in extremes that just aren't helpful when you're trying to break into the industry. The extreme theory path is going to burn you out before you build anything useful. And the extreme framework path, that's going to leave you completely stuck when your application suddenly scales and breaks. So, we need to ask the central question. What do you actually need to know? We're going to pivot right now to a highly pragmatic, realistic roadmap that bridges the gap between pure theory and practical, everyday coding skills.
To make sure we're totally respecting your time, here is our clean 5-step game plan. 1. The Great Debate. 2. Hiring concepts. 3. Daily skills. 4. What to skip. And 5. A free study plan.
All right, part 1. The Great CS Debate.
Moving right along to part 2, concepts for getting hired.
So, if you're applying to major tech companies, here is the reality of the situation. They are going to test you on algorithms. They use it as a standardized bar to measure your problem-solving ability. But please, don't let this overwhelm you. Just focus on these specific essentials. You need to know arrays and strings. You absolutely need hash maps, arguably the single most useful structure for optimizing your code. Get comfortable with basic trees, sorting, and binary search. And finally, grasp traversal patterns like breadth-first and depth-first search, plus 2 pointers for scanning arrays efficiently. That's the core list. And remember, you build this knowledge incrementally over 3 to 6 months. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
Now, the glue tying all those data structures together is Big O notation. I know, it sounds super intimidating, but it really just means analyzing how much time and memory your code uses as your data grows. You really must master Big O analysis to solve common interview coding problems. Mostly because interviewers will almost always ask, hey, can you make this faster? But practically speaking, this is also the exact skill that prevents you from writing code that accidentally crashes your production servers when you suddenly get a million users. It's the bridge between getting a passing grade in an interview and writing genuinely robust code.
Okay, part 3, daily engineering skills. Shifting gears away from the interview room, these are the fundamentals you actually need to do the job day in and day out. First up, how the web works. Things like HTTP, DNS, and status codes. Literally, every developer needs this networking knowledge. Second, databases. You've got to know SQL and understand how indexing speeds up data retrieval. Third, OS basics. Understanding processes versus threads and how memory works helps you realize where your code actually lives and runs. And finally, the command line and Git. Navigating a terminal and using version control to track your code changes, those are absolute, non-negotiable requirements for modern developers. You are going to use those every single day. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why those specific daily skills matter so much. Connecting networking theory and database concepts directly impacts your daily life because it dictates how fast you can fix weird, annoying bugs. When a user reports that a web page is just loading endlessly, well, if you understand HTTP requests and database indexing, you know exactly where to look. You don't just stare blankly at the framework code, you open a network tab or you realize an unindexed database query is timing out. Theory actually empowers your practical debugging. Which brings us to part 4, topics you can safely skip, my personal favorite. Seriously, take a deep breath right now, because I am energetically giving you full permission to completely ignore these advanced topics for the time being. Look, unless you are going into highly specific niche fields like
I don't know, building the next massive programming language or doing hardcore AI research. You really do not need advanced theory of computation, compiler internals, complex cryptography math, machine learning math, or assembly language. Are they fascinating subjects? Absolutely. But are they on the critical path for getting your first job? No way. Skip them, save your precious time, and just focus on the essentials we just covered.
Finally, part 5, your free study plan.
We talked a lot about the what, so now let's talk about the how. Here is your completely free toolkit. For a highly structured daily study of the absolute basics, Harvard's CS50 on YouTube is the undisputed king. It's simply the best free CS overview in the world. When you're ready to prep for those algorithmic interviews we talked about, use neetcode.io. It provides a phenomenal structured roadmap. If dry textbooks bore you to tears, grokking algorithms is incredibly visual and super beginner-friendly. And for all those practical web and networking skills, Mozilla's MDN Web Docs is your absolute Bible. Prioritize CS50 and NeetCode, and you are golden.
Now, I really want to drill in this golden rule. The absolute best way to learn CS fundamentals is not to read a textbook in a vacuum. You have to learn them alongside building actual projects. Please don't try to memorize this stuff isolated from real code. It'll be incredibly boring and you just won't retain it. When you build a web app, all those abstract concepts like HTTP routing, database connections, and get version control naturally become real, tangible things you have to interact with. The context of a real-world project is what makes the theory actually stick in your brain. So, what does this all mean? We've covered the exact concepts you need for hiring, the daily skills for thriving on the job, what you can safely skip, and the free tools to make it all happen. You have the roadmap now. That whole online debate we started with, it doesn't matter anymore. The only question left is, are you ready to stop debating and start building? Pick up CS50, open up your code editor, and take that very first step. You've absolutely got this, and I can't wait to see what you build. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy coding.